and done. So executing strategy, we believe, is very important, and this is really where our HR department plays a key role in the strategy process. And this is a rather complicated slide, and it actually could be simplified into a very kind of, into really sort of three elements. And there's your strategy, and then when it comes down to executing strategy, the key things are your kind of people and culture and the formal organization that you have. And if you don't have the right people, and if you don't have the right organizational structure, and if your culture isn't right, then you're not going to be able to succeed in executing your strategy. In the short to kind of medium term, it's the people and formal organization that you can change. Culture is something that's a lot more slow, it's a lot more difficult to change, so we tend to focus a lot more on the people and organizational structure. And obviously we look to our HR area to very much provide the tools and the processes to help ensure that we have the right people, we have the right talent within the organization, and that we're structurally set up to achieve our strategy. This is called the congruence model, and I'm not going to go into it in any more detail, but if you Google it, you'll come up with various articles on it. We tend to think of this model as the one that we follow, but there are lots of other ones. So what is HR's role in strategy? Well, we ensure that our HR area does actually produce its own strategic plan. So we do look to them to look at what the HR strategy is for the organization. The head of HR is a key member of the CEO's executive team, sits on the executive team. And this year we actually did a deep dive on our corporate strategy, and the CEO set up a sub-group of his executive team to look into it, and the head of our HR was a key member of that team. So she was very much at the table in the development of corporate strategy. Then each of our businesses has on it, and I suspect it's the same in your organization, we have HR business partners, and the executive teams in each of our businesses has to have a HR business representative on that team. So we make sure that there is an HR presence at all of the discussions that go on throughout the organization. So both for the strategic planning and the business planning and the day-to-day operation of the organization, there is somebody from the HR department sitting in on those discussions, taking part in those discussions, contributing those discussions, and taking the output of those discussions back, so that each of the HR partners in the businesses would come back and report to the head of the corporate head of HR, and so we make sure there's a flow. Again, I suspect that's pretty common in throughout business, and probably is in place in your organizations. The fourth bullet here about HR helping to assess the strategic and operational implementation, and this very much goes back to the previous slide, and making sure that we have the right talent in the organization. So one of the things that we do make sure is that there is a report from the head of HR that will form part of the plan that's ultimately approved by the board, which kind of indicates whether we have the organizational readiness to execute not only our strategic plan, but the business plan. And the head of HR would be at the board when the plan is presented, and would be expected to address any questions from the board on our ability to execute on the plan. And if there are gaps, then they will work with the businesses to make sure that those gaps are filled. And we have templates in what we send out to the businesses that helps them identify the talent that they need to implement the strategy and the business plan, and what the talent that they actually have, and what gaps, if any, exist. And the final area, of course, is in the variable compensation programs, and this is a program that's actually kind of jointly managed between my area and the HR area. HR is ultimately responsible for the variable compensation plan, but they need the help and the input from the strategic and business planning people to make sure that not only do we have the right financial objectives, but we have the right qualitative goals, business initiatives, key business performance initiatives in place, and that we're going to use to measure the performance of our management teams across the organization. So we would work with them in helping to set the objectives for the coming year. They very much design the program, and we work with them in the monitoring and execution throughout the years. Each quarter there is a report to the board on how we're executing against plan. It's presented by the HR area, but with input from the planning team.